Hello everyone, Marko Miladinović with you and welcome to the new tutorial. In this tutorial I will guide you through my painting process on Lord DAVICUS, the Afflicted. This menacing looking miniature is from Kickstarter campaign called Ravaged Star, Armies of the Whale Touched. I see this miniature as a great Chaos Lord proxy for any tabletop game. In my interpretation I wanted to create the grim ambience and place this character in it. That's why I went for sinister looking eyes that are glowing, as well as for this bluish turquoise OSL that is very subtle, but it adds dynamic to the scene. With all these details I can really flesh out the character that I had in mind when I first saw this miniature. The first phase will be underpainting. For those who don't know, underpainting is the technique that both Aleksandra and I use and teach many of our students. With this technique, I'm able to create an initial ambience that will guide me through my next painting stages. Let me explain how this works. So you can see that I did the black priming, and then I went with airbrush with primary red. Even though primary red is very saturated color, because of the black primer, the whole first layer of this red is very dark and almost sepia brown, which is the tone I want to achieve. Next, what I did is that I increased the layer of primary red over the face and the top part of the model. After that, I went with intense yellow. It is very subtle, but you can see that it already gives a boost to the focal point. And this will help me a lot in later stages when I do the skin and some of the non-metallic metal gold. As always, I like to bring more interest to the piece. In this case, I decided to go for additional source light. And this source light will be very cold, so I went for the primary blue. It's very subtle, but it adds dynamic to the whole piece. The paints that I will be using in the next stages of this tutorial are turquoise, white, primary yellow, primary red, primary blue, Prussian blue and burnt umber. As you can see, I'm mostly using primary paints to create this tone, and I'm trying to create different tones from very cold to very warm skin tone, because all of these tones will be placed on the actual model, but just in different areas and in different stages. I know that the whole idea about this tutorial is to create an easy step-by-step to create a nice but quick paint job, but it is important to understand how the colors work. I always like to start with the contours of the stronger shadows first, especially of the face. For the darkest tone, the dominant mix is between Prussian blue and red, creating a dark purple tone. Following the value I got with my underpainting sketch, I continued by adding the facial light placements, defining the character. And now the color mixing come in handy, as we want to connect the OSL color on the skin tone. So we're gonna build a gradient between the blue and the skin tone, which is very pale and yellowish hue. On areas where OSL hits stronger over the warm skin tone, the tonal value of cold blue light switches to warmer turquoise and green. On highlights, I follow the same tonal value, but just increase the brightness of the tones. Next, what comes are the eyes. Even though they are super small, I decided to have a black contour and then very bright red eyes. How I did this is that I first place white in the center of the eye and then went over with a glaze of red. This really creates a scary, menacing look of the character. Adding highlights to the other areas of the face to increase the contrast. In first stage, I would block all of the shadows by using glaze of red. With this glaze of red paint, I will get darker areas of shades. With this glaze of red paint, I will get darker areas of shade, but also keep the underpainting sketch visible. With this step, I am ready to start with non-metallic metal of the armor. I will guide you through few important steps to get a good contrast, and shiny metal results easy. Keep in mind to keep the good volumes of the bigger areas. The first layer that I'm using for my sketch of light placements are the midtones. Nicely outlined, light placements already done half of the work. Next step are highlighting. Using same tone, I will repeat layers over same areas, applying them in smaller coverage, shaping light to define the details. If I work on a more dynamic ambience lights, and for example on Chaos Star, I will repeat the same procedure with the difference of adding more tonal values to one side of the object I am painting. As explained while painting DAVICUS face, the tone of blue that is reflecting over gold will change its tonal value to warmer tones, while I can keep the cold tones in the brightest light. The Claw of Carnage. Let's play a little with a tonal contrast. Contrast between the warm primary red and cold primary blue. I choose lower area of the claw for the red shades, while the underpainting is kept in highlights areas. The upper area of the claw are lightened with a primary blue OSL, once again keeping the underpainting in the shades, while sketching lights with midtones and creating the highlights contrast with brighter blues. Let's paint the eye gem. Over the darker surface, I started with brighter red sketch. I added a bit of yellow to warm up some of the lighter areas of the eye. I continued with this warmer tone while creating the round volume. And for the final touch, I added the strong white reflection to boost up the glow. For fabrics, once again I have the initial volume sketch defined by the tones of underpainting. I'm glazing emerald green tone that I added to the scheme for the good contrast with the reds. To highlight the fabric, I will use primary blue in mix with emerald to brighten the tone that I'm applying over the light areas, creating initial texture with my brushstrokes. When it comes to organic shoulder pad, I wanted to spice up the glaze as wet blend between primary red and emerald green. In highlighting stage, I started with brighter red tones, bringing them to the brighter blues of the OSL, defining the volumes of the shoulder pad details. For the glazing of the base, I'm using the green wet blending of emerald and red, creating dark brown value of the area where the paint mixes more and dark saturated green red areas on the places where tone mixed less. using this reddish brown as a base shape tone and continuing to sketch the light placements of the skulls using greenish values. It boosts the tonal contrast as well. Same as I did on the claw, the sharp metal surface are bright blue and shades are dark red. As the final step, I'm tidying up the shades and the details of the piece. And it's ready! Oh wait, one more detail before I can call it ready is painting the gaming base in matte black. And this will be all for today's tutorial. I really hope you enjoy it and that you learned something new. If you liked it, subscribe to our channel. And if you want to learn more of our techniques, check out our Patreon, where you can find a great selection of both PDF and video tutorials, as well as, for those who like 3D printing, some STLs. Until the next one, bye bye!